very delicious session. Yes, you heard me right. A very delicious session. And we are moving on to the food startup story session. And yes, we have an amazing conversation upcoming on the dais. The food startup stories in conversation with Mr. Ravi Wazir and Sudhakar Rao. Can we please have both these gentlemen on the dais with a huge round of applause, everyone? Mr. Ravi Wazir is an author of Beyond the Menu, and we also have Mr. Sudhakar Rao, who is the director of ICFAI Group. Thank you so much for joining us in this beautiful conversation. Again, this is a very
Good
special
afternoon.
session.
Good afternoon. We are reorganizing the chairs on the dais. It's not on Titanic. Please sit down. You have it? Okay, we launched the book. But this time is not counted.
And yes, can we please have the book unveiling right here on the dais, Beyond the Menu? Can we have a huge round of applause, and can we also get the copy of the book right here on the dais as we unveil and engage in discussion on the book? Over to Sudhakar, sir. And this deserves a great round of applause, everyone. Beyond the Menu, a restaurant startup guide. And now I hand over the session to Sudhakar, sir. Over to you.
Thank you. Ravi, please sit down. We will talk everything that is beyond the menu starting from now. 30 minutes, please mark your time, mark your watches. 30 minutes. You don't have to remind us. Every time, the moment I walked in this hall, I have been putting my hand over heart several times. You know why? I've been putting my hand over my heart several times. It is to stick that speaker sticker here. It was just not sticking. So I kept on checking and finally I lost it. So I will listen more and I will not speak. And that's the promise to our great author here. So what is beyond menu here in this session is, interestingly, the audience is not getting the time to ask questions. So what we'll do is, we will see if they have any questions on this topic. First,
Sure.
we will elicit questions and see if we can answer those questions.
Super.
And if they don't have any questions, I have a lot of questions for them.
Fantastic.
And if I don't ask good questions, you can ask me questions.
Will do.
And check whether I did read the book or not. Okay?
Okay.
Done. So, raise your hands if you have any questions. This is a book on restaurant business. Restaurant business. This is an executive guide to restaurant business, and he has been a consultant, he's been a practitioner, he's been a restaurateur, he's been many things, and he's written this book. So what questions would you like to ask? We have put you in priority. Raise 5 hands, 5 questions we'll take up. Question number 1, hand number 2, only 1, hand number 2 there. Only 2? Okay, my first question to those who have not yet raised the hand is, how do you pronounce restaurant? Is it restaurant, restaurant, or what? Speak up. Benedict, please give the speaker sticker to everyone so that they speak up. Restaurant. Restaurant. What do you say?
Yeah, anything goes in India, so I'm fine.
Anything goes in India, it's okay, doesn't matter. Question number 3. No, only 2 questions? Okay, question number 3. 4 and 5. Jaldi, jaldi. 4 and 5. Okay, we are done. Mr. Patabiram, first question. Go ahead. Is this okay?
Very quickly, I'll try to answer each one so that there's enough interaction with the audience.
I am the timekeeper of the festival.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
What is the most important thing for someone who runs a restaurant? Is it profit or is it the top line?
Sorry?
Is it profit or is it the sales?
Profit, undoubtedly, because sales is useless if there's no profit. Next question.
Big round of applause so that everyone can ask. Pratap.
So in India, we don't have too many Michelin star restaurants. Is it to do with the globality of the food, or is it something to do with the pricing? And how can we do to achieve higher count and higher numbers so that we also can go more global beyond samosa?
Appreciate that.
Excellent.
But you know what? Michelin is a tire company which decided to have its own criteria for food internationally. And they have a set of criteria which you can Google and figure out. I think for us, we should not necessarily aspire to be certified by Michelin. It's like us going after the Oscars. I think what we should do is recognize that in this very city, I did spend some years of school. In fact, I have some of my school friends here in Mysore, actually, where I lived for a couple of years. But I would say in Bangalore, for example, for me, a Brahmin's coffee bar or Nagarjuna biryani, I mean, I don't need them to be certified by Michelin. Seriously, I wouldn't go down that angle. Thanks. Next one, please.
Next question, Professor Raghunath. Professor Raghunath. You don't need a mic.
Now, what's happening is they put 15, 20, and 25% as an option at the time of billing. And typically, you have to put somewhere in the middle. Then there's an 18% tax. 18 plus 20, 38% you pay extra over and above the bill. Does it mean the restaurateurs do not pay their wages adequately to their staff? That's number one. Number two, even in India, while Supreme Court has come out with an order that you cannot have service charges, almost 7 out of 10 restaurants continue to levy service charges. Half of the people do not realize that if there is a service charge, they don't need to tip. So over and above, they end up tipping. Why is this unfairness continuing in the restaurant business?
Very much
good.
appreciate that question. I think it's a very important thing to address. While I wear two hats, one from the restaurant business viewpoint and one from the consumer viewpoint. In this case, I disagree with my restaurant brethren very, very strongly. It upsets me when someone decides for me as a customer how much I should tip. On the legal front, my understanding is that I don't think that it's converted into a law, but I believe the restaurant industry is allowed to charge service charge. That's my understanding. However, if a customer says, no, I don't want to pay, then they do that. So they make that an exception. But at least with my clients, I try as far as possible to appeal to them that if we wear the hat of the consumer, we wouldn't like it if someone decides for us. And I completely agree that it is the restaurator's problem or the restaurator's business to decide staff salary and not make it the consumer problem. The issue with this taxation thing makes it a little difficult for the restaurator. And what happens is that if I charge you a higher base bill, so instead of 100 rupees plus 10 rupees service charge, if I charge you 110 rupees, then on that 10 rupees also I'm taxed. So then you will get even more irritated. And so as a restaurator, when I'm wearing my restaurator hat, I don't know what to do. So it's very hard to come to a conclusion, but there's pain on both sides. It's not something conclusive, but so far this is my understanding and experience. Next one, please.
Thank you. Next question,
Ji.
Ranjan Sahu.
Taste about taste naturally. Said otherwise, how concerned the restaurants are about the health of the people?
That's an excellent thought. I wrote an article year before last in Forbes India about food safety. And the first paragraph that I wrote, I got calls from other countries. And it was about how children got food poisoning or some lost their lives through midday meals because the food was adulterated to that extent. Milk, for example, there's a recipe, a chemical recipe of how you can make milk really cheap and what it does to you. And when I grew up in this industry, the first thing that I learned is don't feed anybody something which you wouldn't eat yourself. So I really feel that punishment for these people, money is not enough, fines are not enough. I feel the punishment should be very, very severe. Uh, I mean, I can't express how severe, but extremely severe if they are punished, because before taste and before price and anything, the food, first thing is food safety. And we don't need an FSSAI. That's the Food Safety Association of India. We don't need legal bodies to tell us that. Any basic restaurateur, anyone who's producing food and selling it, whether it's from a home or from a chawl or from the most fancy hotel, where there can be adulteration as well. I don't think that they are consciously mixing it. There can be food safety issues as well everywhere. I think the person should take cognizance and recognize what they are doing. And it's not only about legal implications, it's not about the law or any such thing. It's have a basic model and have a basic stance.
Very good.
Next one, please.
Thank you. Next question, please. Next question. Yeah, ma'am.
Going on like this, Sudhakar?
Yeah. Sidji.
Of late, we have seen a lot of restaurant chains coming up. One of the challenges to scaling, unlike you have in possibly in the US or other parts where there is not so much variety. In Indian cuisine, people are looking for variety all the time. And therefore, the same store growth always faces a challenge. And that is the big challenge to scale. So what do you have as a thought or a solution for this kind of, because if the same store growth doesn't grow, then there is a big challenge to growth and profitability. And I come back to your first question. If you don't have revenues, you're not going to have profits anyway.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. So firstly, I'd like to say that India is a rich country. Even if we don't look at other cuisines, we have enough cuisines in this state to give a 200 dish a menu to someone. And if we count the whole country, we have thousands of dishes. So there is no dearth of supply in terms of dishes. On the other hand, when you're talking about scale, on the other hand, in terms of demand, as you said, there is always a demand for variety. But one of the classic examples of scaling up and one of the largest scaled up businesses in the world, restaurants in the world, is McDonald's. I know some of you may not like that because you may have some issues with the way McDonald's thinks, and you may say, I want to have fresh food, so be it. I'm saying in terms of the number of items, there are limited variety. So that is proof that with a limited number of dishes and in various parts of the world, where in McDonald's case, for example, beef is their prime ingredient, you can't do it in India, let's do chicken or let's do vegetarian, and we localize it here. So I think localizing in each catchment is very important. And I would say that same store growth is not the only way. If you have one thing and you want to copy paste it, that's one way to grow. The second way to grow is in your own geography, you be the queen of your of 5 different brands, serving 5 different cuisines in 5 different formats if you wish, and you dominate that geography instead of trying to dominate the country with one brand. Next one.
Thank you very much. Next is mine.
Please, yeah.
Next is mine. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, in your book, I am not going to ask you why you wrote the book. I know why you wrote the book. So you're a Kashmiri and Parsi background person. So you love food. You love to discuss that, and all that's the reason for you to work in the area of food also, because you're from hotel management as well. But the question is, you mentioned somewhere that for a restaurant business, you need to have in the beginning what is called a large fortune to make a small fortune. Can you elaborate this a little bit so that audience understands?
Yeah, no, that's an industry joke that in this business you need to have a large fortune to make a small one, and it's really true because by the time you take a place on rent, and then rents are quite expensive, maybe a little less in Bangalore than in Mumbai, but overall quite expensive, in good locations. And location, as you know, is very important you have electricity at a commercial rate, you have manpower, and you need to pay your manpower well to be competitive. So these are three high fixed costs. And then you have the entire capital expenditure of building a brand, which maybe we can speak about if we have the time. And building a brand costs a lot of money. Every interaction that you have, or your team has, or your brand has, online or offline, with every consumer, really leads to that brand building, and it costs a lot of money. So, and you never know when it's going to come back, if that money is even going to even going to make back how much you invested, let alone make a profit out of it. Because the restaurant business is one of the businesses with the least survival rate of all businesses in the world. And one of the reasons I wrote this is because you spend lakhs, if not crores of rupees, setting up one single restaurant, if it's a sit-down, standalone restaurant. And if I can save someone a lot of financial and emotional pain, that's one of the reasons. In less than $500, you can buy it online. Unfortunately, somehow it isn't there on the bookshelf just now for some reason. I don't know, but online and in bookstores.
Great. So what's your advice based on your response to the wannabe entrepreneurs in restaurant business? You want them to go or not go for it?
Yeah, the appetite for the restaurant business globally is it's one of the most attractive. So it's a great paradox. One with one of the least survival rates in the world, and yet one of the most attractive businesses to do in the world. And oftentimes it's because in India, particularly, we cook ourselves, we're good cooks, and we say, you have a great family recipe. Somebody sort of boosts you up and says, come on, you can start a restaurant. But there's a lot more to it. So understanding that lot more to it is what makes a difference. And I would advise you, if you're getting into it, go into it with caution, plan your work, and then work your plan. But don't wait for all the stars to align, because that's the nature of entrepreneurship. At some point, if you're convinced enough, you have to take the plunge and not know what's going to be on the other side. So I'm not for or against. I'm saying if anyway you're going for it, just build your awareness so no one can cheat you. Read that book is what I'm trying to do, because I've come across many people who will sell you stories of how much money you could make, sell you equipment which you don't necessarily need, sell you fellow vendors who you don't necessarily need. And in your case, I would rather say either don't do it or do it yourself. But don't think that you can hire a chef and run a restaurant. That's not going to work.
So please read the book. Please read.
Undoubtedly.
Okay, now let's take one more question related to what Sir has asked. And that is,
Yes, Dhruv.
No, I'm going to ask the question.
Oh, okay.
About what he hinted at.
Okay.
What are the three critical success factors to start a restaurant business on MG Road here? We don't have to talk about theoretical stuff now. On MG Road, three critical success factors, and we are not going to pay you for this advice.
Three critical factors to there are no three successful factors that you can make. But broadly, if I was to say, to answer specific to your question with three factors, I would say define who on MG Road. There's so many people on MG Road who are traveling. There could be a rickshaw driver and a guy in a Mercedes. You figure out firstly who is your target audience, and understand their behaviors, understand their get insights into their buying behaviors, their patterns, their consumption, their preferences, their likes and dislikes. That would be the first one. The second one would be, what is the concept that you want to build that will fulfill a certain need or a demand? So on one hand, you've got who is there. On the other hand, what you're going to supply, the price points, the portion size, which dishes, etc. That would be the second point. And the third point, I would say, to build that bridge between the two, I'd say ask yourself if you have the emotional and the financial wherewithal to survive for at least 1,000 days, which is what Udpi restaurant owners in our country suggest, and which is what B schools say 3 years to at least to put in.
1,000 days.
Yes, sir.
As a gold standard to see whether your restaurant business is actually live or is going to actually work for you or not.
Yes.
I think this mantra is given by one of the restaurant groups, right? Udupi,
Udupi restaurant guys say Hazar Din,
Hazardin.
literally. And B schools internationally say 3 years is a good time to kind of get an idea of and keep on restructuring and keep on re-engineering your business till you get it right. And if you're headed in the right
Great.
direction, then
Great, great. No, wonderful. I think you can help a lot of entrepreneurs who would like to set up food business, not food business, restaurant business. Food business is much larger a pie. We are restricting to restaurant business, and you can help them. They'll read the book, and still they'll have to come back to you. No, 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 you cannot show that to me because I'm watching it anyway. Thank you. So they can come to you and seek help, and I'm sure you help them. A great detail has gone into writing this book in terms of several checklists, in terms of tables, in terms of matrices, and in fact, some of the general things. If you rise above the book and see, the definition and the characteristic traits of an entrepreneur are generally applicable to anyone. So I would thank you for doing all these things. And in my view, you have, although you borrowed that Chibba's structure, the 2x2 matrix that you mentioned, there is every author has got his own way of defining entrepreneurship, and it's very good. But one last question from my side before anybody realizes that they have another self-actualizing question. I will ask you my question first. That is, which other business, you have seen this business very closely, which other business do you think is coming closest to restaurant business?
in terms of risk,
In terms of risk, in terms of characteristic features, in terms of the time it takes to play out, all put together.
so I'd say all food and hospitality businesses, and I've worked in most of them. I've worked in vending, which is vending machines. I've led some business nationally of vending machines. I've worked in hotels, smaller hotels. I've worked in FMCG food businesses, and I've worked in India's largest catering company, which is now Sodexo. I headed 2 of their businesses nationally. And I would say that there's a common denominator of the perishability of food. And if you don't sell that food in a particular time, particularly if it's fresh food, then you lose that opportunity to sell that food. And there's a lot of wastage. And the people piece is something which is also very common to everyone. As we say, the hospitality or the food industry is actually the people industry. And we happen to be in the business of providing food and accommodation. So we are actually the people industry. So that's the common denominator in all of that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Audience, any movie that you have seen on restaurant business in India or abroad? I mean, background could be Indian or abroad. Any movie that you remember? Yeah? Chini Kam. Yeah. Yeah. There are many movies. No Reservation. No Reservations is a good one. Any movie that you like on restaurant business?
I've seen all of them, and I understand the difference between sensationalizing things and what the reality is. I've seen I've seen all of them that have been named here, and I continue trying to watch them. But the good part about watching these things is it does give you, sometimes it romanticizes the restaurant business, which kind of worries me, that it'll further amp up already what people are thinking, and that worries me. But sometimes they give the real picture of people really sweating it out for long hours.
One piece.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so you can ask me a question which looks like this. Please stand up.
Yeah.
Because before they throw us out of the days, so we need to stand up.
So we show we are exiting.
Yeah. You can ask me a question which looks like this. If both of us start a restaurant business, what would be the name of that business? Name of the restaurant? Wazir.
Ravi Rao. Chalo. Branding ho gaya.
Okay. That's in good taste.
Yes.
In good taste is a good name. Hey, how many of you have watched Mirzapur? Tyagi pata hai aapko?
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You have been a good audience.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'll be outside if you need to chat.
Well, cheers to the Ravi Rao restaurant that would be coming up. So I request you to remain on the dais, please. Let me also take this opportunity to invite Ms. Revati Ashok onto the dais to present a memento of appreciation for our guests. Ms. Revati Ashok is an independent director. She has been associated with BPAC, Athena Infonomics, IIM Bangalore, so on and so forth. And yes, a huge round of applause for Mr. Ravi Wazir. Thank you for feeding us with some food for thought. Thank you for this insightful and engaging session.